I was standing outside my daughter's apartment with groceries in both hands when her neighbor practically jumped in front of me. "Stop! Don't go in there," he said, his face pale and serious. I looked at him confused, my hand already reaching for the spare key she gave me. "What are you talking about? This is my daughter's place." I always let myself in, but he grabbed my wrist gently and pulled me back. "Ma'am, please. You don't want to see what's in there right now. Trust me." And that's when everything I thought I knew about my daughter's life came crashing down. My name is Patricia. I'm 58 years old, and I've always been the kind of mom who tries to give her kids space while still being there for them. My daughter Rachel is 31, and for the past year, she's been living alone in a nice apartment about 20 minutes from my house. She works as a marketing manager at some tech company and always seemed to have her life together. She'd come over for Sunday dinners. We'd text almost every day, and I thought we had a great relationship. I thought I knew everything about her life. But I was so wrong. Let me back up a little bit. About 6 months ago, Rachel started acting different. Not in a bad way necessarily, just different. She seemed distracted during our Sunday dinners, always checking her phone. She'd cancel plans at the last minute. When I'd ask her about work or her social life, she'd give these vague answers that didn't really tell me anything. "Work's fine, Mom." "Yeah, I'm hanging out with friends." "Everything's good," that kind of stuff. I tried not to be one of those overbearing mothers, you know? Rachel's an adult. She's allowed to have her own life. So I gave her space. I figured maybe she was dating someone and wasn't ready to tell me yet. Or maybe work was stressful and she needed time to herself. I didn't push it. Then about 3 months ago, she gave me a spare key to her apartment. She said it was just in case of emergencies, and because I sometimes dropped off groceries for her when I was in her neighborhood. She's always been bad at keeping her fridge stocked, my Rachel. Takes after her father in that way. He could survive on takeout and cereal if I let him. So I'd stop by maybe once a week, usually in the afternoon when I knew she was at work. I'd let myself in, put the groceries away, maybe tidy up a little bit if the place was messy. Nothing major, just mom stuff. And I always texted her to let her know I'd been there. She never seemed to mind. But that Tuesday, everything changed. It was around 2 in the afternoon. I'd been at the grocery store and picked up some of Rachel's favorites. Fresh strawberries, that expensive yogurt she likes, some chicken breast, vegetables, all the good stuff. Her apartment was on my way home anyway, so I figured I'd drop it off. I texted her like I always did. "Hey, honey, stop by with some groceries for you. Hope work is going well." I hit send and drove over. When I got to her building, I grabbed the bags and headed up to the 3rd floor. Her apartment is number 312, right at the end of the hallway. As I was walking down the corridor, I noticed her neighbor, a guy probably in his mid-30s with dark hair and glasses, standing outside his door. He was apartment 311, right next to Rachel's. I'd seen him a few times before, but we'd never really talked beyond a quick hello. But that day, the second he saw me heading toward Rachel's door, his whole face changed. He looked panicked, almost scared. And before I could even get my keys out of my purse, he rushed over. "Stop," he said, his voice urgent but trying to stay quiet. "Don't go in there." I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Excuse me? Please," he said, glancing nervously at Rachel's door. "You're her mom, right? I've seen you come by before." "Yes, I'm her mother, and I'm just dropping off some groceries. I do this all the time." He shook his head quickly. "Not today. You can't go in there today." I was getting annoyed now. Who was this guy to tell me I couldn't go into my own daughter's apartment? "Look, I don't know what you think is going on, but Rachel gave me this key. I'm allowed to be here. Now, if you'll excuse me." But he stepped between me and the door. Not aggressively, but firmly. "Ma'am, I'm serious. If you go in there right now, you're going to see something that will hurt you. And I don't think Rachel would want that." My heart started beating faster. What are you talking about? Is she hurt? Is something wrong? She's not hurt, he said carefully. But she's not alone. And I don't think she's expecting you. The way he said it made my stomach drop. What do you mean she's not alone? He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of your family business. But I've noticed things. And I just think you should maybe call her first before you go in there. But I wasn't listening anymore. All I could think was that my daughter might be in some kind of trouble. What if there was someone dangerous in there? What if she needed help? My hand was already pulling out the key. I'm sorry, I said to him, but if my daughter needs me, I'm going in. He grabbed my arm, not hard, just enough to stop me. Please, at least knock first. Give her a chance to answer. I looked at him for a long moment. There was something in his eyes, something that told me he wasn't just being nosy or interfering. He looked genuinely concerned, like he was trying to protect me from something. So, I knocked. 3 sharp raps on the door. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard movement inside. Quick footsteps, hushed voices, more movement. The neighbor was still standing there, watching me with this sad, almost pitying expression. Rachel? I called out. Honey, it's Mom. I brought groceries. More scrambling sounds from inside. Then, I heard my daughter's voice, muffled through the door. Mom, just a second. Don't come in yet. She sounded panicked. Why would she sound panicked? I looked at the neighbor. He just shook his head slowly, like he was sorry for what was about to happen. Finally, after what felt like forever, the door opened, but just a crack. Rachel's face appeared in the gap, and she looked flushed, her hair messy. She was wearing a robe in the middle of the afternoon. Hey, Mom, she said, trying to smile but failing. Sorry, I wasn't expecting you. I texted you, I said, holding up the grocery bags. Oh, I haven't checked my phone. Look, now's not really a good time, but I wasn't having it. Something was clearly wrong, and the neighbor's warning had put me on high alert. Rachel, what's going on? Are you okay? I'm fine, Mom. Really, I have company over. Company? I glanced at the neighbor, who had retreated to his doorway but was still watching. What kind of company? Rachel's face went even redder. Just a friend. We were hanging out. And then I heard it, a man's voice from inside the apartment. Babe, is everything okay? Babe. Some guy just called my daughter Babe. I should have been happy, right? My daughter had a boyfriend. That's normal. That's good. So why did she look so guilty? Why had the neighbor tried to stop me? Rachel, I said slowly, why don't you introduce me to your friend? Mom, really, it's not a good time. But I'd already pushed past her into the apartment, and that's when I saw him. Standing in my daughter's living room, wearing sweatpants and no shirt, was a man I recognized. Not because I knew him personally, but because I'd seen him before. At my house, at Sunday dinners, sitting next to his wife, his pregnant wife. David? I said, my voice barely a whisper. David Chen, married to my daughter's best friend since college, Amy. Sweet, kind Amy, who was currently 7 months pregnant with their first child. Amy, who'd been to my house dozens of times. Amy, who called me Aunt Patricia and brought me flowers on Mother's Day. And here was her husband, half naked in my daughter's apartment in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Mrs. Patterson, David said, his face going pale. This isn't. We were just. But there was no explanation that would make this okay. No excuse that would change what I was seeing. I looked at Rachel. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. She couldn't meet my eyes. Mom, you don't understand. Then explain it to me, I said, my voice rising. Explain to me why your best friend's husband is in your apartment in the middle of the day. Explain to me why you look so guilty. Explain to me why your neighbor tried to stop me from coming in here." The grocery bags slipped from my hands, fresh strawberries rolling across the floor. Neither of us moved to pick them up. "How long?" I asked. "How long has this been going on?" Rachel finally looked at me, and there were tears in her eyes. 6 months. 6 months. 6 months of lies. 6 months of sneaking around. 6 months of betraying her best friend, a pregnant woman who trusted her. "Does Amy know?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Rachel shook her head. I felt sick. Physically sick. This wasn't the daughter I raised. This wasn't the girl who used to cry when she saw sad movies, who volunteered at animal shelters, who always stood up for the underdog. This was someone I didn't recognize. "You need to leave," I said to David, not even looking at him. "Now." He grabbed his shirt from the couch and practically ran out the door. I heard the neighbor's door quickly close as David passed by. He'd been listening, probably. I didn't care. When it was just me and Rachel, I sat down heavily on her couch. My legs felt weak. "Mom," she started. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." "I love him," she said quietly. "He's married, Rachel. He's married to your best friend. She's having his baby." "I know that," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "Do you think I don't know that? Do you think this is easy for me? Easy for you?" I stared at her in disbelief. "What about Amy? What about her feelings?" "She's your best friend." "She doesn't understand him," Rachel said, and I could hear how she was trying to convince herself as much as me. "They got married too young. He's not happy." I'd heard that line before. Every cheater says it. Every affair has the same excuse. "So that makes it okay?" I asked. "That makes it okay to sleep with him behind her back? To lie to everyone? To let her plan her future with him while you're here doing this?" Rachel sat down on the chair across from me, pulling her robe tighter. "It just happened, Mom. We didn't plan it. Things don't just happen, Rachel. You made choices. Every single time you met him here, every single time you lied to Amy, every single time you looked me in the eye at Sunday dinner and pretended everything was fine, you made a choice." She was crying now, but I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't hug her and tell her it would be okay, because it wouldn't be okay. She'd broken something that couldn't be fixed. "Are you going to tell her?" Rachel asked, her voice small. I thought about Amy. Sweet Amy with her growing belly and her excitement about becoming a mother. Amy who'd asked Rachel to be the baby's godmother. Amy who had no idea that her entire life was a lie. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I need time to think." "Mom, please. If you tell her, it will destroy her. Especially now, while she's pregnant. The stress could—" "Don't you dare," I said sharply. "Don't you dare use her pregnancy as an excuse. You didn't care about the stress you were causing when you were sleeping with her husband. You only care now because you might get caught." Rachel flinched like I'd slapped her. I stood up, my whole body feeling heavy. "I need to go. I can't look at you right now, Mom." I said I need to go. I walked out of that apartment and I didn't look back. The neighbor's door was closed, but I could feel him on the other side, probably listening to the whole thing. When I got to my car, I just sat there for a while. My hands were shaking. How could this happen? How could my daughter do something like this? And then I started thinking about all the signs I'd missed. The way Rachel and David always seemed to leave Sunday dinners at the same time. How Rachel always knew what David liked to eat, what shows he watched, little details a friend wouldn't normally know about her friend's husband. The way she'd changed the subject whenever Amy talked about her marriage, making vague comments about how all marriages have rough patches. It had been happening right under my nose, and I'd been too blind to see it. I drove home in a daze. My husband Richard was in the garage working on some project when I got there. He took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked, wiping his hands on a rag. So I told him everything. About the neighbor's warning, about walking in on Rachel and David, about the 6 months of lies. He listened without interrupting, his face getting darker and darker. When I finished, he sat down on his workbench. "Jesus," was all he said. "What do we do?" I asked him. He was quiet for a long time. Richard's always been the calm one, the thinker. Where I react with emotion, he processes with logic. "We tell Amy," he said finally. "Richard, she's 7 months pregnant." "I know," he said, "and that makes this worse, not better. She deserves to know. She deserves to make her own choices about her marriage and her future. And the longer this goes on, the harder it will be. But what if the stress causes problems with the pregnancy?" "What if it does?" he said, looking at me with sad eyes. "That's not our fault, Patricia. That's on Rachel and David. They made this choice. They created this situation. Amy, finding out now or finding out after the baby's born, either way it's going to devastate her. At least now she can prepare. She can make decisions." I knew he was right, but it didn't make it any easier. "Rachel will never forgive us," I said quietly. "Maybe not," Richard agreed. "But we didn't raise our daughter to be a liar and a cheat. We raised her to be honest and kind. If she's lost her way, that's on her. But we can't lose our way too by keeping her secret." That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about Amy, about her excited texts when she found out she was pregnant, about how she and David had tried for 2 years before it finally happened, about how she'd brought over paint samples for the nursery and asked my opinion, about how she'd called me crying happy tears when she felt the baby kick for the first time. And my daughter had been sleeping with her husband through all of it. The next morning, I called Amy and asked if I could come over. She said yes immediately, excited to show me the nursery that they'd finally finished. When I got to her house, she greeted me at the door with a huge smile, her hand resting on her belly. She was wearing a maternity dress with little flowers on it, and she looked so happy, so completely unaware of what was about to happen. Come in," she said. "I'm so glad you called. I've been meaning to show you the nursery. David just finished putting up the border yesterday." David. His name felt like poison in my mouth. We went upstairs to the nursery, and it was beautiful. Pale yellow walls with a border of little elephants, a white crib with soft bedding, a rocking chair in the corner. Everything perfect for their coming baby. "It's lovely," I said, and my voice cracked. Amy heard it. "Patricia, are you okay?" I turned to look at her, this sweet girl who'd been like a second daughter to me, and I knew I couldn't do this, standing in her baby's nursery. "Can we sit down?" I asked. "Downstairs?" Her smile faded. "You're scaring me. What's wrong?" We went down to her living room. She sat on the couch, her hand protectively on her belly, and I sat across from her. "Amy," I started, and then stopped. "How do you tell someone that their entire life is a lie? How do you break someone's heart when they're carrying a child?" But Richard was right. She deserved the truth. "I need to tell you something," I said, "and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot. But you need to know." Her face went pale. "Is someone sick? Is it about the baby?" "No, nothing like that." I took a deep breath. "Yesterday, I went to Rachel's apartment to drop off some groceries, and when I got there, David was there." Amy looked confused. "David, my David, what was he doing at Rachel's?" "He was." I couldn't say it. I couldn't say the words, but I didn't have to. I saw the moment it clicked in Amy's mind. Saw the confusion turn to horror, turn to disbelief, turn to pain, all in the space of a few seconds. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not. They wouldn't." "I'm so sorry," I said, and tears were running down my face. "I'm so sorry. How long?" she asked, her voice barely audible. 6 months. She made a sound then, a kind of broken gasp, and her hand went to her chest like she couldn't breathe. I moved to sit next to her, but she held up a hand to stop me. 6 months, she repeated. 6 months. We found out I was pregnant 7 months ago. So they've been. While I've been. She couldn't finish the sentence. I'm so sorry, I said again. Because what else could I say? I came as soon as I found out. I couldn't keep it from you. Does Rachel know you're telling me? No. She asked me not to, but I couldn't lie for her. I couldn't be part of this. Amy sat there in silence for a long time, just staring at nothing. Then she said, "He told me he was working late. All those nights he said he was working late, or meeting guys from work or going to the gym. He was with her. Amy. She was here," Amy continued, her voice getting louder. "Rachel was here, at this house, eating at my table, sleeping in my guest room when she stayed over. She held my hair when I had morning sickness. She came with me to my ultrasound when David had to work. That wasn't work, was it? He wasn't at work." I shook my head. "She's going to be my baby's godmother," Amy said, and then she started laughing, this horrible, broken sound. "We asked her 2 months ago. She said yes. She said she'd be honored. She was sleeping with my husband and she agreed to be my baby's godmother. I'm sorry," I said for the third time, knowing it would never be enough. Amy turned to look at me then. Really look at me. And her eyes were full of tears, but also something else. Anger. Good, she should be angry. "Did you know?" she asked. "No. I swear to you, I had no idea until yesterday. If I'd known before, I would have told you. Immediately." She nodded slowly, believing me. "Where is he now?" "I don't know. He left Rachel's apartment when I told him to. I assume he went home, or to work, or... I don't know." As if on cue, we heard a key in the front door. David. Amy's whole body tensed. I started to stand, to leave them alone, but Amy grabbed my arm. "Stay. Please stay." So I stayed. David walked into the living room, still in his work clothes, carrying his laptop bag. He started talking before he even looked up. "Hey, babe. Sorry I'm late," the meeting ran. Then he saw me sitting there, saw Amy's tear-stained face, and he knew. "Amy," he said, dropping his bag. "Don't," she said, her voice cold. "Don't you dare Amy me right now. I can explain." "Explain what?" she shouted, standing up. "Explain how you've been sleeping with my best friend for 6 months. Explain how you lied to me every single day. Explain how you looked me in the eye while I was pregnant with your child and pretended to be a faithful husband? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." Amy was shaking now, her hands clenched into fists. "Patricia saw you. She saw you at Rachel's apartment, half naked, in the middle of the day. So don't you dare try to gaslight me right now." David looked at me then, and there was hatred in his eyes. Like this was my fault, like I was the one who destroyed his marriage. "You had no right," he said to me. "I had every right," I shot back. "She's like a daughter to me. You think I'd let you keep lying to her? This is between me and my wife. You lost the right to privacy when you started sleeping with my daughter," I said, standing up to face him. "You made this everyone's business. You involved all of us in your lies. Mom told me because she loves me," Amy said, and her voice was steadier now. "Because she respects me enough to let me know the truth, unlike you. Unlike Rachel." David's shoulders slumped. The fight went out of him. "Amy, please. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Don't lie to her," I said. "Rachel told me she loves you. So don't stand there and tell your wife it meant nothing." Amy's face crumpled at that. "She loves you?" David didn't answer. "Get out," Amy said quietly. "Amy, get out," she screamed, and her voice was so raw, so full of pain that it made me want to cry. "Get out of my house. Get away from me. This is my house too. I don't care. Get out, or I'm calling the police." David looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Amy's face stopped him. He grabbed his laptop bag and walked toward the door, then paused. "We need to talk about this," he said. We need to figure things out. The baby. Don't you dare talk about my baby, Amy said, her hand on her belly. You gave up the right to talk about this baby when you decided to cheat on me. After David left, Amy collapsed back onto the couch. I sat next to her and held her while she cried. Deep, horrible sobs that shook her whole body. I was terrified that the stress would hurt the baby, but I didn't know what else to do. How could she? Amy kept saying through her tears. How could Rachel do this to me? We've been friends since we were 18, 13 years. She was my maid of honor. I was hers. We were supposed to raise our kids together. I didn't have an answer for that. I didn't understand it either. We sat there for hours. Amy cried until she had no tears left. I made her tea and found some crackers in the kitchen because she needed to eat something. At some point, she called her sister, who came over immediately. I stayed until her sister arrived, making sure Amy wasn't alone. Before I left, Amy hugged me. Thank you, she whispered. I know this wasn't easy for you, but thank you for telling me. I'm so sorry, I said again. I'm so sorry my daughter did this to you. It's not your fault, Amy said. You're not responsible for her choices. But driving home, I felt responsible. Where had I gone wrong? How had I raised a daughter who could do something like this? When I got home, there were 17 missed calls from Rachel and a dozen text messages. All variations of the same thing. How could you tell her? You had no right. You just destroyed my life. I hate you. I didn't respond to any of them. Richard was in the kitchen when I got home. How'd it go? He asked, even though my face probably told him everything. It was awful, I said. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. He hugged me tight. You did the right thing. Then why do I feel so terrible? Because you're a good person, he said. And good people feel terrible when they have to hurt someone, even when it's necessary. That night, Rachel showed up at our door. She was furious, her face red and blotchy from crying. How could you? She said the second I opened the door. How could you do that to me? How could I? I repeated, shocked at her audacity. Rachel, how could you do this to Amy? That's the question. That was my choice to make, not yours. You had no right to tell her. I had every right, I said, my own anger rising now. You involved me the second you gave me that key. You involved me every time you lied to me at Sunday dinner. You involved me when I walked in and saw what you'd been doing. Did you expect me to just keep your secret? Yes. 1. Rachel shouted. I expected you to support me. I'm your daughter. And Amy has been like a daughter to me too. Was I supposed to watch her live a lie? Watch her raise a baby with a man who's been cheating on her? Watch her trust a best friend who's been betraying her? I love him, Rachel cried. Doesn't that matter? I love him and he loves me. He's married, Rachel. He has a wife, a pregnant wife. He's going to leave her, Rachel said. And my heart broke a little more because she actually believed it. He told me, once the baby is born and things settle down, he's going to leave her. We're going to be together. I almost laughed, but it would have been too cruel. Rachel, honey, they never leave. Men like David, they never leave. He's going to stay with Amy because that's easier. Because leaving means dealing with the consequences of his actions. And even if he did leave her, do you really think you could be happy? Knowing you destroyed a family? Knowing you took a father away from his child? You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. I understand that you made selfish choices without thinking about anyone but yourself. I understand that you betrayed your best friend in the worst possible way. And I understand that instead of taking responsibility, you're standing here yelling at me for telling the truth. Rachel stood there, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. If you really loved me, you would have kept my secret. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have put me in that position, I countered. Real love isn't about enabling bad behavior. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. I can't believe you chose her over me. I didn't choose anyone over anyone, I said, feeling exhausted. I chose honesty. I chose integrity. I chose to do what was right. And if you can't see that, then I failed as a mother even more than I thought. Rachel stared at me for a long moment, then turned and left without another word. The next few weeks were horrible. Rachel stopped coming to Sunday dinners. She wouldn't answer my calls. The few times I texted her, she either ignored me or sent one-word responses. Amy moved back in with her parents while she figured out what to do. David tried to fight for the marriage, but Amy was done. She filed for divorce and a restraining order when David wouldn't leave her alone. The baby, a little girl Amy named Sarah, was born healthy 6 weeks later. I sent flowers and a gift, but I didn't visit. It didn't feel right, given everything. But Amy texted me. A photo. "Thank you for being honest with me," she wrote. "It gave me time to prepare. To protect myself and my daughter. You saved us." That helped a little. Rachel, on the other hand, was living in denial. She really thought David was going to leave Amy for her. But once Amy filed for divorce, David suddenly disappeared from Rachel's life. He stopped answering her calls. He blocked her number. She went by his new apartment and he wouldn't let her in. Because that's what men like David do. They have affairs when it's convenient and exciting and doesn't cost them anything. But when real consequences show up, when they might actually have to sacrifice something, they run. 3 months after everything came out, Rachel finally called me. Not to apologize, but because she needed something. She'd been evicted from her apartment and needed a place to stay. "Rachel, I can't," I said. "Not until we deal with what happened." "So you're going to let me be homeless?" she said. "I'm your wob. Daughter." "You're an adult who made adult choices," I said, my heart breaking. "You need to deal with the consequences of those choices." "I lost everything," she cried. "David won't talk to me. Amy hates me. I lost my apartment." "Why did you lose your apartment?" I asked, suspecting I knew the answer. Silence. "Rachel? Why did you lose your apartment?" "David was helping me pay rent," she admitted quietly. "Of course he was. He was paying for the apartment where he could cheat on his wife in comfort." "I can't help you right now," I said. "Not until you take responsibility for what you did. Not until you show some remorse for how you hurt Amy and her baby." "Amy's fine," Rachel said bitterly. "She got everything. The house, full custody, child support. She wins." "This isn't about winning and losing," I said, losing my patience. "This is about right and wrong, about loyalty and betrayal. A baby is growing up without her father in the home because of choices you and David made. That's not winning." Rachel hung up on me. "Richard told me I was being too hard on her, that she was still my daughter and I should help her. But I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe I was being stubborn or cruel, but I needed Rachel to understand the gravity of what she'd done. I needed her to show some remorse, some understanding of the pain she'd caused." That didn't happen for almost a year. Rachel got a new job, found a cheaper apartment with a roommate, and slowly rebuilt her life. We maintained minimal contact. Short texts on holidays. No phone calls, no visits. Then one day, I got a letter in the mail, an actual letter, handwritten on stationery. "Dear Mom," it started. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this past year. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did, why I made the choices I made. And I want you to know that you were right. About everything." I sat down and kept reading through tears. I was selfish. I was cruel. I justified my actions by telling myself that David and Amy weren't happy, that I wasn't really hurting anyone, that love made it okay. But none of that was true. I was hurting Amy every single day. I was hurting their baby. I was hurting you and Dad. I was hurting myself. I tried to blame you for telling Amy. I tried to blame David for leaving me. I tried to blame everyone but myself. But the truth is, I'm the one who made those choices. I'm the one who betrayed my best friend. I'm the one who participated in destroying a family. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect Amy to ever speak to me again. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry for what I did and for what I put you through. You were right to tell Amy. She deserved the truth. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see that. I love you, Mom. And I'm sorry I forgot what you taught me about being a good person. I'm working on being better, on being the daughter you deserve. I hope someday you can be proud of me again. Love, Rachel. I cried reading that letter. Richard found me in the kitchen, tears streaming down my face, clutching the pages. She gets it, I said to him. She finally gets it. We invited Rachel over for dinner the next Sunday. It was awkward at first, all of us stepping carefully around the elephant in the room. But slowly, over the course of the evening, it started to feel a little bit normal again. Rachel told us about her therapy, about what she was learning about herself, about how the affair wasn't really about David at all, but about her own insecurities and need for validation, about how she'd been jealous of Amy's perfect life and had wanted to prove she could have something Amy couldn't. It was honest and painful and exactly what we needed to hear. Have you reached out to Amy? I asked. Rachel shook her head. My therapist says I need to respect her space, that it's not about me and my need for forgiveness. If Amy wants to talk to me someday, she will, but I can't force that. I was proud of her for understanding that. Things are better now, 2 years later. Rachel and I have rebuilt our relationship slowly. There are still moments where I think about what she did, about the pain she caused, and I feel angry or disappointed. But I also see how hard she's worked to become a better person, how she's taken responsibility, how she's changed. Amy is doing well too. Baby Sarah is 2 years old now, healthy and happy. Amy met someone new, a good man who treats her right and loves Sarah like she's his own. They got engaged last month. I still send Amy Christmas cards and birthday gifts for Sarah, though we don't talk often. Some wounds take a long time to heal. David tried to come back into Sarah's life about 6 months ago, wanting joint custody. But the court didn't look favorably on a father who'd abandoned his pregnant wife and disappeared for a year. He gets supervised visitation twice a month. Last I heard from Amy's sister, he's already behind on child support. Rachel never dated anyone seriously after David. She says she needs time to work on herself, to figure out who she is without needing validation from a relationship. I respect that. She's been volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other women who've made mistakes rebuild their lives. She says it helps her process her own guilt, being able to give back in some way. The neighbor, the one who tried to warn me that day, moved out about 6 months after everything happened. I saw him loading boxes into a moving truck and went over to thank him. You tried to protect me, I said. I never properly thanked you for that. He shrugged, looking uncomfortable. I just didn't want you to get hurt. I'd seen him coming and going for months. I knew what was happening. I almost told you so many times when I'd see you dropping off groceries, but it wasn't my place. That day, though, when I saw you heading for the door, I couldn't let you walk in blind like that. Why did you care? I asked. You didn't even know me. My mom went through something similar, he said quietly. Found out my dad was cheating. Nobody told her. Everyone knew, the whole neighborhood knew, but nobody said anything. She was humiliated when she finally found out, felt like everyone had been laughing at her behind her back. I always wished someone had told her sooner, given her the dignity of knowing the truth. So when I saw you that day, I thought of my mom. I couldn't let the same thing happen to someone else's mother. I hugged him then, this stranger who'd tried to save me from pain, even though there was no way to avoid it. He'd given me a chance to prepare myself, and in doing that, he'd given Amy a chance too, because I'd walked in on them during the day instead of letting myself in when nobody was home. If I'd gone in when the apartment was empty, I might have found evidence, but I wouldn't have confronted them immediately. I might have sat on the information, trying to figure out what to do. And in that time, who knows what would have happened. Sometimes I think about that afternoon and how different everything could have been. If I hadn't stopped at the grocery store, if I hadn't decided to drop off food for Rachel, if the neighbor hadn't been home to warn me, if I'd listened to him and walked away instead of going inside. But I didn't walk away. And as hard as everything that followed was, I still believe I made the right choice. Richard and I talk about it sometimes, late at night when we can't sleep, about whether we were too hard on Rachel, whether we should have handled things differently, whether our relationship with her will ever be completely the same. She betrayed someone we love, Richard said one night. Not just Amy, but the values we tried to teach her. That's hard to come back from. But she's trying, I said. She's really trying. I know, he agreed. And I'm proud of her for that. But you can't unbreak a vase, Patricia. You can glue it back together, make it functional again, even beautiful. But there will always be cracks. You'll always be able to see where it broke. He was right. Our relationship with Rachel has cracks now. We've glued it back together, but the breaks are still visible. Maybe that's okay. Maybe those cracks remind all of us of what happened, of the consequences of our choices, of the importance of honesty and integrity. I still think about Amy's face when I told her. The way her whole world shattered in an instant. Sometimes I wake up at night and see that expression, and I wonder if I did the right thing. If I should have found a gentler way, a better time. But there was no better time, no gentle way to deliver that kind of news. And the longer I'd waited, the worse it would have been. The hardest part of the whole situation wasn't even the initial revelation. It was watching the aftermath unfold over months and years. It was watching Amy go through her pregnancy alone, dealing with divorce proceedings while her body was changing and her emotions were all over the place. It was watching her give birth without her husband there, without her best friend there. It was watching her struggle as a new mother, exhausted and overwhelmed and heartbroken. And it was watching Rachel deal with the consequences of her actions. Watching her lose her best friend, her relationship, her apartment, her reputation. Watching her spiral into depression and self-loathing. There were moments when I wanted to swoop in and fix everything, to protect my daughter from pain the way I had when she was little. But I couldn't. This was pain she'd brought on herself, and she needed to feel it to understand the gravity of what she'd done. One of the hardest days was about 8 months after everything came out. Rachel called me at 2 a.m, drunk and sobbing. I ruined everything, she kept saying. Everything. Amy hates me. David used me. I'm a terrible person. I'm the villain in everyone's story. I wanted to tell her she wasn't a villain, that she'd just made mistakes, that everyone deserves forgiveness. But those would have been empty words. Kind lies that wouldn't help her. Instead, I said, yes, you made terrible choices. You hurt people who loved you. You were selfish and dishonest. But that doesn't have to be the end of your story, Rachel. You can choose to be better. You can choose to learn from this and grow. But that starts with accepting responsibility, not drowning in self-pity. It was harsh, maybe too harsh for a mother to say to her crying daughter at 2 a.m, but she needed to hear it. I don't know how to be better, she whispered. One choice at a time, I told her. One honest choice at a time. That conversation was a turning point for her. The next day, she checked herself into an intensive outpatient therapy program. She started really doing the work of understanding herself and her choices. I learned things about my daughter during that time that shocked me. She told her therapist, who helped her tell me, that she'd always felt like she was in Amy's shadow. Amy was prettier, more outgoing, more successful in love. When we'd all have dinner together, Amy and David seemed so perfect, so happy, and Rachel felt invisible next to them. I wanted something that was mine. They wanted something. They wanted something. She told me during one of our therapy sessions together. Something Amy couldn't have. And when David started paying attention to me, when he made me feel special, I convinced myself it was love. But really, I think I just wanted to win. I wanted to have something Amy wanted. I wanted to matter more than her, for once. It was painful to hear, but it made sense. And it helped me understand that this wasn't just about David or about the affair. It was about deeper issues Rachel had been carrying for years, issues I'd never noticed because she'd hidden them so well. We talk about that now, in our family. About how we communicate, about making sure everyone feels seen and valued, about not making comparisons between people. It's changed how Richard and I interact with our other daughter, Jessica, who's younger than Rachel. We're more intentional now, more aware. Jessica took everything really hard, too. She looked up to Rachel, idolized her older sister. Finding out what Rachel had done, watching our family fracture, it changed her. "How do I know I won't do something like that?" Jessica asked me once. "How do I know I'm not capable of hurting people the way Rachel did?" "We're all capable of hurting people," I told her honestly. "Every single person has the capacity to make selfish choices, to betray trust, to cause pain. What matters is that you stay aware of that capacity, that you check yourself, that you think about the consequences of your actions before you take them." "What if I don't?" she asked, and she looked so scared. "What if I make a mistake like that?" "Then you take responsibility," I said. "You own what you did. You work to make it right. You learn from it, you become better." That's what Rachel's doing now. That's all any of us can do. The situation changed all of us, really. It changed how we see trust, how we see family, how we see right and wrong. It made us more careful, but also more honest. We don't sweep things under the rug anymore. We talk about the hard stuff. Last month was the first time Rachel saw Amy since everything happened. It wasn't planned. They ran into each other at a coffee shop. Rachel told me about it that night, her voice shaking. "I saw her standing in line with Sarah," Rachel said. "And my first instinct was to leave, to run away so she wouldn't have to see me. But then I thought about everything my therapist has said about facing the consequences of my actions. So I stayed." "What happened?" I asked. "Sarah's beautiful, Mom. She has Amy's eyes and David's smile, and she's just this perfect little person, and I destroyed her family before she was even born." "What did Amy say?" "Nothing at first. She just looked at me, and I could see everything in her face. The pain, the anger, the betrayal, but also something else. Tiredness, maybe. Like she's exhausted from carrying all this hurt around. So I walked over to her, and I said, "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't change what I did. But I need you to know that I'm sorry, and I think about what I did every single day, and if I could take it back, I would." And then I left. I didn't wait for her to respond. I just said what I needed to say and walked away. "That was brave," I told her. "Amy deserved to hear it," Rachel said. "Even if she doesn't forgive me, even if she hates me forever, she deserved to hear that I know what I did was wrong." 2 weeks after that, I got a text from Amy. Just 5 words. "Thank you for telling me." That's all it said, but it meant everything. I don't know if Amy will ever forgive Rachel. I don't know if their friendship can ever be repaired. Probably not. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. But maybe that's okay. Maybe not everything needs to be fixed. Maybe some relationships are meant to end, and the lesson is in accepting that and moving forward. What I do know is that I made the right choice that day. When the neighbor stopped me, when I walked into that apartment, when I decided to tell Amy the truth, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was right. Because Amy deserved to know. She deserved the chance to make informed decisions about her life, her marriage, her future. She deserved the dignity of truth. And Rachel needed to face the consequences of her actions. Not to punish her, but because that's how people grow. That's how we learn. We make mistakes, we face the fallout, and we choose to be better. Would it have been easier to keep the secret? To let Rachel and David continue their affair until it either fizzled out or exploded on its own? Probably. It would have been easier for me, at least. I wouldn't have had to be the one to break Amy's heart. I wouldn't have had to damage my relationship with Rachel. I wouldn't have had to carry the weight of that decision. But easy and right aren't always the same thing. I think about the neighbor sometimes, about what he said about his mother, about how everyone knew about his father's affair, but nobody told her, about how humiliated she felt when she finally found out. That could have been Amy. If I'd kept the secret, if I'd protected Rachel instead of being honest, Amy would have eventually found out some other way. And she would have known that I knew, that I'd kept it from her, that I'd chosen my daughter over her. At least this way, she knew someone cared enough about her to tell her the truth, even when it was hard, even when it cost me something. There are still hard days, days when I miss the relationship I had with Rachel before all this happened. Days when I wonder if I pushed her too hard, expected too much, was too unforgiving. Days when I second-guess every decision I made. But then I think about Sarah. About this little girl who's growing up healthy and loved because her mother had the information she needed to protect herself and her daughter. About how different things might be if Amy had stayed with David, if she'd raised her child in a home full of lies and betrayal and disrespect. And I think about Rachel, about how she's actually changed, actually grown, actually become a better person because she had to face what she'd done. If I'd covered for her, if I'd kept her secret, would she have learned anything? Or would she have continued down that path, believing she could get away with betraying people who loved her? I don't have all the answers. I'm not sure anyone does when it comes to situations like this. Morality isn't always black and white. The right choice isn't always clear, but I did what I believed was right. I chose honesty over comfort. I chose protecting a young mother and her baby over protecting my adult daughter from the consequences of her own choices. And I'd make the same choice again, even knowing how hard everything that followed would be. Last Sunday, Rachel came over for dinner. It's become a regular thing again, though it's still not quite the same as it used to be. We were sitting around the table, Rachel and Jessica and Richard and me, and Rachel said something that made me cry. "I've been thinking a lot about that day," she said. "The day you found out, and I've been thinking about the neighbor, the guy who tried to stop you from coming in. I used to be so angry at him. I thought he ruined my life. But now I realize he was trying to protect you. He saw what was happening, and he tried to save you from getting hurt." She paused, pushing food around on her plate. "I wish someone had tried to protect Amy like that," she continued quietly. "I wish someone had stopped me before I hurt her, but nobody did. Everyone just let me keep making these terrible choices until everything exploded, except you. You stopped it. You protected Amy when I wouldn't, and I hated you for it for so long. But Mom, thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to do the right thing even when I couldn't." We all cried then, right there at the dinner table. Even Richard, who never cries. It's not a happy ending. It's not even really an ending at all. It's just where we are right now, 2 years later. Still healing, still growing, still learning how to be a family after everything that happened. But we're trying, and sometimes trying is enough. I see that neighbor occasionally, even though he moved. He works at a coffee shop I go to sometimes. We always exchange a smile, a nod of recognition. Last time I saw him, I bought him a coffee and sat with him during his break. "You changed my life," I told him. "That day, when you tried to warn me, you changed everything." "I didn't do anything," he said. "You're the one who had the hard conversation. You're the one who told the truth. But you gave me the chance to prepare myself," I said. "You could have just let me walk in there blind. You didn't have to get involved, but you did. And that mattered." He smiled. "How's your daughter? Both of them, I mean. Rachel and the other woman." Amy's doing well, I said. She's engaged to a good man. Her daughter's healthy and happy. And Rachel's working on herself. Really working on it. She's not the person she was 2 years ago. That's good, he said. That's really good. What about your mom? I asked. You said she went through something similar. His face softened. She's okay now. It took a long time, but she's okay. She learned to trust again. Found someone who treats her right. But I think she'll always carry that pain of knowing that people let her live a lie. That's why I couldn't do that to you. We sat there in silence for a moment, two people connected by one afternoon. One choice, one moment of honesty. Thank you, I said again. Thank you for caring enough to try to protect a stranger. That's what we're supposed to do, isn't it? He said. Care about each other. Even when it's hard, even when it's not our business, we're supposed to look out for each other. He was right. That's what we're supposed to do. I think that's the real lesson in all of this. Not about affairs or betrayal or consequences, though those are part of it, but about how we treat each other. About choosing truth over comfort. About protecting people even when it costs us something. About standing up for what's right even when it hurts. The neighbor did that when he tried to stop me from opening that door. He could have minded his own business, let me walk in unprepared, but he chose to care. And I did that when I told Amy the truth. I could have kept Rachel's secret, protected my daughter, avoided the fallout. But I chose to care about Amy more than I cared about making things easy for myself. And Rachel's doing that now, in her own way. Working on herself, taking responsibility, trying to be better. She could have stayed in denial, blamed everyone else, refused to change. But she chose to care about becoming a person she can be proud of. That's what matters in the end. Not whether we never make mistakes, because we all will. But whether we care enough to own those mistakes, to learn from them, to do better. My phone buzzes. It's a text from Amy. There's a picture attached. Sarah, now 2.5, wearing a little pink dress, grinning at the camera with chocolate on her face. Thought you might like to see this. The text says, she's quite the character. Hope you and Richard are well. It's not much. Just a text, a picture, a casual message. But it's something. It's a sign that maybe, slowly, wounds can heal. Maybe not. Completely. Maybe not back to how things were before. But heal enough to move forward. I show the picture to Richard. She's beautiful, he says. She is. I agree. And I think about how that little girl exists in a world where her mother knows the truth, where she's protected, where she's loved by people who chose honesty and integrity. And I think about how different her life might be if things had gone another way. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it costs you relationships and peace of mind and easy answers. But it's still right. And when I go to bed that night, I sleep soundly for the first time in 2 years. Because I know, deep in my bones, that when I was standing outside that door 2 years ago, when the neighbor said, "Stop," when I had to choose between protecting my daughter and protecting the truth, I made the right choice. I chose truth. I chose integrity. I chose to care about someone who needed protecting. And that's something I can live with. That's something I can be proud of. Even when it hurt. Even when it cost me. Even when it would have been easier to walk away. I did the right thing. And in the end, that's all any of us can do. Subscribe if you want to hear more real stories like this.